That was certainly productive.
Oh my God. From season 3, episode 8. I was so wrong, but I also do throw red herrings in, again, every theory you've probably seen on YouTube. But I'll tell you right now that what we just watched only doubled down on some of the theories I've hinted at and I've talked about in previous videos. So subscribe if you want to know what's happening in Fromville. If you want to jump right into what we need to talk about with this episode, I will have video chapters because we hit 1,000 subscribers. Shout out to you guys. You guys are amazing. The way that you guys just blew up my channel is insane. Now I can get video chapters, and now I'm eligible for YouTube partnership, which is insane. If you watched my last episode preview breakdown, I wanted to talk about it because when I get the stills and the preview of the show, I've always thought, based off what other YouTubers are doing, that these stills came from the preview, like they were being dropped with the preview to show us stills of what was going to happen in the next episode. I'm now knowing and understanding that those stills are actually spoilers that are coming from some place where everybody has all the spoilers, and there's way more stills than what I've even seen that are going to tell you everything that's happened in the show. For that reason, I will no longer be doing preview breakdowns, and I will be focusing on getting my theories up on YouTube. So just so you guys know, for all of my past preview breakdowns, there's nothing I've posted on this channel that is now a spoiler now, but I will stay away from it because I got too close. We got a little too close to the sun, and we're not doing that. So I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want to spoil you guys. I want to continue to theorize on what's going to happen and then hopefully be paid off at the end. I don't want to sit here and act like I know what's going on. Now, everything that will be in this video you're about to watch is 100% based off of what we also watched, what me and you both watched, and every episode in the past. So what just happened and everything you might have missed, season 3, episode 8. Starting with number 1, we need to talk about Fatima. I have to rewind and let's talk about some things that are very important. In the last episode, when Tilly was dying, she told Fatima, "You need to run." This is because Tilly knew about Elgin and this ghost somehow. She somehow knew that this ghost and Elgin were after Fatima, and I wonder what that means and why that's important. Number 2, Fatima was in the greenhouse about to try to eat the rotten vegetables. Now we know, based off her dialogue in this episode, that she was no longer attracted to those vegetables. The question is why? Well, this is a trope that we've seen in other movies and other shows of during a transformation of somebody finding out that they are actually attracted to human flesh and human blood. They are actually, through the process, eating other random things. Usually you might have seen it where it's like someone's eating raw meat potentially, and they start with animal blood and then it eventually turns into human blood. But having rotten vegetables, just things that are dying in general, is also another way to accomplish this trope. And that's what we're seeing with Fatima. Once she had tasted the human blood, there was no going back. She needs human blood in order to continue feeding this baby. It does not want anything else, which is why the ghost sent Elgin to go take his own blood and put it in a blood bag so that he can feed this baby so that they can continue whatever process is happening to Fatima. Storyline since season 1, right? Now, this is important because you've probably seen a theory on YouTube about Odin, the Yggdrasil, or the life tree, the tree of life, and all of these other Norse mythology connections that also would mean that the monsters themselves are Draugr and would also explain the talismans. I'm going to make a separate video on this for you guys to really boil down this whole theory for you because it all ties together and now it all makes sense. However, it's not a one-to-one. But we are definitely seeing them reference this story in quite a few different ways. The same way we're seeing them reference Native American mythology and Wendigos in a very similar way. This is intentional. Jade's quest for knowledge mirrors Odin's quest for knowledge, and in the mythology about Odin's quest for knowledge, his quest required him to sacrifice an eye. What have we seen throughout the whole show? Jade seeing visions of ghosts who have all lost an eye. I also want to add, is this potentially his visions of the versions of himself, his replacements, his reincarnations, depending on the theory that you want, of people in the past who failed his part of the quest? There was Miranda actually the chosen one. They were just having elevated visions of what was going on in the town, but they were not explicitly chosen to save the children. This is weird to me because now this is setting up a twist for potentially Tabitha and Miranda storyline to be the one that actually messes everything up and not be the one that saves everyone. I wonder if that's where this is going, and that Jim being pushed to believe Tabitha is going to end up in a place that we do not want. Is Jim going to die in the process of Tabitha trying to save the town? There's a lot of things that could happen with this storyline, which fast forwards us to Jim and Henry's scene, where they're talking about how Henry made the mistake of not believing Miranda, and now she was all right about everything, but was she? But what stands out to me about this scene is that I was hoping we would get more payoff on the theories everybody had. Was a drunk? And I think what was being alluded to is that Jim was looking at a tall glass of whiskey when Julie was born, because before Julie was he a drunk. I believe that was the alluding here in that conversation. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But this opens up an entire can of worms for me about what the underplot, or basically the meaning or the lesson that we're supposed to walk away from what the show is telling us is. We know that there's some sort of replacement reincarnation theory going on. I'm not ready to say it's true reincarnation, simply because reincarnation requires the soul to pass away. And we're seeing people who are clearly replacements of each other that are still alive. So for me, reincarnation is not what's happening here, but it's what I was talking about in a previous video, which is synchronicity and replacement theory. Carl Jung is a huge person that talks about this idea of synchronicity. In more common aspects of understanding synchronicity, most people apply it to, for example, you have a soulmate and you realize through getting to know your soulmate that you guys have so many things in common that there's multiple times in your life where you guys were in the same room at the same place, and you guys just didn't meet by happenstance while you were there. It's this concept of so many people sharing the same beliefs, experiences, and ideas that it's almost scary. And it can be as tangible as having the same favorite song, knowing all the same things, believing all the same things, and maybe even owning some of the same items. Some of these shared experiences are so deep and hold so much weight that it has been used in some scientific circles to allude to the fact that we might all have a shared consciousness. That's a huge part of synchronicity theory that is being played out in the show. People who have the same jobs, people who have similar upbringings, like the same songs, even to the point of the bracelet itself. Even though the bracelet is supposedly the exact same bracelet, it could still fall under this theory of people who don't know each other at all, who are living separate lives. It seems like everyone in town is being challenged to overcome generational curses. And I believe that is what the entire show is built on. A generational curse, for example, would be being a drunk. Your father was a drunk, now you're a drunk, and now you're being challenged to be the one of the family bloodline who wasn't a drunk. Another good example of this is Ellis and Boyd. Ellis and Boyd are being challenged to overcome the generational curse of Boyd had to murder his own wife to save the town. And Ellis is now playing out a storyline that is so close, it's almost too close for comfort, having to choose between his lover and the safety of the town. Elgin even could be a great example of this. We know that he has a grandmother he talked about who was into Christianity, into knitting owls, which is a Japanese practice. So we know she has Japanese cultural ties and Christianity ties, something Elgin has also displayed throughout the show. Now he's being challenged by a Japanese ghost to make a mistake, something he explicitly said his grandmother would see and think was an angel. He is making the same mistake his grandmother would in the same scenario. Generational curses seem to be very important in this show, and replaying out the steps of someone who came before you, whether you're actually related or not. And what bigger way to create the ultimate generational curse than to sacrifice your own children? So let me not go too deep into that. That's a great point, but let's get right into the next part. Randall and Julie. So again, a mirror of the building that used to exist above ground. Remember how Boyd had said, I somehow ended up in a chimney that was in the ground. There's also an image that we see on Miranda's map of what looks like a snow globe that we've seen before that is connected to my dreamscape theory. But it also is an image of a version of the town underneath the town that we see. Is this alluding to that there's a mirror image of the town as above, so below? When she gets into the tunnels, she starts hearing the voice of Tabitha and Victor when Tabitha ended up in the tunnels in season 1 after digging in the house. Now, this is really important for you guys to understand that I have not seen anybody put together. Yes, the vision put her in the past, but it specifically put her in episode 10 of season 1, because in episode 10 of season 1, these two things happened at the exact same time. This was something I only caught upon a rewatch, that all of these things happened at the same time. When Tabitha fell through the house and ran into Victor, and when Boyd went through the faraway tree and ended up in this ruins where Martin was, all happened explicitly in the same couple scenes right after the other, alluding to the fact that they were all happening simultaneously. The vision that she's having put her in the past at the exact same time of two things, which happened in episode 10 of season 1, which I think a lot of people picked up on was the moment the town started changing. When the weather started changing, when the cicadas were now involved, when the voices and everything else that basically evolved the town to a newer level, when everything else got in. So was Abby's apparition right? Did the music box only delay what is going to happen to the 3 who were chosen? The 3 who were chosen are still not free. What is mirrored by Randall still singing the cicadas, Julie still hearing the screams, and we still don't know how Marielle is still being affected by all of this. Let's skip ahead. Probably the most important part of this episode, we're finally here. Victor, Tabitha, and Sarah. We're finally seeing Victor trying to get to the answers of Jasper. He's starting to slowly get there. He's going to the basement because, as we know, the basement is for secrets. Victor, Tabitha, and Sarah figure out that it is in the basement of the church. I was right. Christopher and Jasper were in the basement of the church. Why doesn't Eloise like the church? That's another important thing. As we know that Eloise had a favorite house, and then she also now did not like the church. I have to talk about that. There's a drawing in Victor's room that I've seen since I first saw it that I was like, that looks like the actual graves by the church. And what is this thing that's walking around in the graves by the church? You do not love the same way I do not love us now being introduced to time travel in the most inconvenient way. I would have preferred to see Jasper talk. Much scarier, much more interesting, much more fire. Then it could have been the boy in white talking through Jasper. Much better twist. But the fact that it's literally just the boy in white standing there, not loving it, but we're just gonna go with it because in the day I do love the show. That's why I make videos on the show, but I'm just not loving certain details that are throwing off the overall plot of the show. But let's talk about what the boy in white actually says. The answers are in the beginning. It started with the children, what the others did to them, the people they loved, the people they trusted. Now, this is something I think all of us could have put 2 and 2 together, that everything started with the children. The children were the first sacrifice that created the town. We just didn't know how and why, but now we know why. I also want to point out that I believe the children were sacrificed in 1506. Now, I know that there's a running theory about what the number 1506 means. And I think the mistake a lot of us are making with the numbers and the dates in the show is thinking that they're literal, thinking that it's literally something documented happening in 1506. Versus it actually just being what happened around 1506. It was around the general number of when Norse settlers first came to America, which ties back to what some people were saying about Newfoundland and the Beothuk people. And all of that is very, very much connected and being hinted at and foreshadowed in the show. But it is not a one-to-one. And it's very clearly being disproven as a one-to-one through the rest of what the boy is saying. He then goes on to say they were born in the dark and they were murdered in the dark. So they were born down in the caves underneath where we saw Tabitha saw that there were cages down there, and we saw a child in one of the cages. They were murdered in the dark. So they were born down there. They were kept down there their whole lives. And then eventually they were sacrificed down there in the caves where we saw Jade was in season 1. But someone who loved them told a story, and the story gave them hope. So what I'm assuming happened here is that at least one person out of all these people who decided to sacrifice the children knew that what they were doing was wrong, which I would hope. And they decided that these children deserve to be treated like children. And in the process of them being put to sleep, told them a story, a bedtime story potentially, about anything that could be related to everything that we're seeing in the show. Again, we've had a consistent pattern of being told about stories that parents are telling their children, storybooks that people are reading, and even nursery rhymes and stories that play out from other people's childhoods. It's all connected, and it all connects back to the original story that these children were told. Now, he goes on to say, and when the children laid on the stones, they poured their hope into the roots that made the symbol, and those roots became the tree. Something that I told you guys so many videos ago, that the root symbol was actually the roots, and that this is a trope that we've seen in previous works of when someone dies and they died looking at something, they start to use that symbol and they put it in the heads of the people they're trying to contact. And that symbol ends up being something that they saw when they died, and ends up being the thing you have to go find in order to figure out where they died. So those roots became the tree. Now, Sarah explicitly says the faraway tree. I've talked to you guys in another video about how there's more than one tree. But this tree has been now confirmed to us that it is the original and the most important faraway tree. Now, this main faraway tree, the original faraway tree, is probably the answer to the quest. The right person has to go through the tree and end up in the right place to save the children. Emphasis on the right person, because Victor goes on to say that the boy in white told Christopher to go through the tree. Again, he did not tell Miranda to go through the tree. Also, why was Christopher angry? He says everything here lies. Why wouldn't he go through the tree? Supposedly the actual chosen one who needed to save the children and go through the tree. Why did he not want to go through the tree? Why did he say everything here lies? What had he been through? What had he seen that caused him to feel this way, right? So is this whole idea, Miranda and Tabitha being the chosen one, actually not true? And if that's not true, what do the children actually want Miranda and Tabitha for? At the end of the scene, when we get told that Victor told his mom what he said, and that's why she left, that's why she went to go to the tree, is she the real reason everyone else died? I don't believe that Miranda, having gone through the tree, if she ever had, would have saved the children. I don't believe Eloise ended up where she was supposed to end up either, when she was the person who actually went through the tree in the last cycle. And I believe because it was not Christopher, no one ever solved the quest. Miranda's not the chosen one. Christopher actually is. And Christopher needed to finish the cycle, and the cycle ended up failing because they both made the wrong decision. And I have a theory that the town is actually stuck in the cycle that it started when Victor entered the town, because Victor survived, and it has not evolved like it's supposed to in order to enter the new cycle, which is why everything in town seems dated. Now, this video is long because there's so much going on, but I do want to have some honorable mentions of things that I caught through this episode that I want to mention here for the people who are super invested. If you're not super invested and you just wanted to know the episode itself, you can go watch somebody else's video. Subscribe though. Subscribe to get my next breakdown. But these are the things I want to point out overall what's happening in the show. Number one, the person that was in the cellar when Elgin went into the cellar. A lot of people are running with that this was Jade, specifically off my last video, because I posted a picture of Jade in a very similar shirt. However, it's not the same shirt. It's not the same pants either. And the person in the cellar does have a beard, yes, but I don't believe that the person in the cellar is actually Jade. I think that's just a coincidence at that point. The shirts are not similar at all. The pants aren't the same. I don't believe Jade died in season 1 and he's the guy in the cellar, but somebody died in the cellar. The question is who? Abby still creates the plot hole again, because Elgin and Ethan's dreams and Fatima's might have been when we got here, but Abby also had dreams when she was younger. We have to talk about the difference between Victor's drawings, which are things he's seen before, Eloise's drawings, which are the stories her mom told her of Fromville, and Miranda's map, which we've seen on the wall, and what Miranda's map is actually telling us. That's gonna be a completely different video for me, but I want you guys to start thinking about how Victor's drawings, a lot of people are confusing all the drawings in the show with Victor's drawings and forgetting that some of these drawings are not his. Victor is only drawing things he's actually seen. Eloise was drawing things that her mother told her about, which are playing out in the show. And Miranda's drawings and her map are trying to figure out Fromville. The Norse settlers, the Yggdrasil, Beothuk versus the Wendigos and Native American mythology, and now what we also know is Japanese mythology and folklore in the show. There's even some hints towards Chinese mythology in the show. This is all intentional and nothing explains everything, and that is the point. Although I was a huge advocate for the monsters are Wendigos, I'm starting to believe that there's intentional details about the show, about what people are wearing throughout the show. And this is gonna be a separate video again too, that is showing us that they quite literally based all of this stuff off of both, because Norse settlers and the Yggdrasil and the Beothuk have a lot of one-to-ones to Wendigos, Native American mythology, early mythology in America, the Anazazine and the people who were in America who also originated the folklore of Wendigos in America. It goes really deep and explains quite a lot of the show, but you have to be open to understanding that it's both and not one or the other. The doctrine abuse theory. The doctrine abuse theory, I believe, is a little convoluted, and I don't believe that the show is actually going to introduce doctrine abuse as a genuine villain. I believe it is just showing us that doctrine abuse, just like the Yggdrasil, just like the Norse mythology, just like the Native American mythology, is just another reference. I believe that the writers are probably very familiar with doctrine abuse, and he was another influence on what the show is being written about, but I don't believe he is what the show is being written about. The tarot card theory, same thing. It's all playing a role in how they created the show, but none of it is supposed to explain the show. Why the town looks the way it does. The motel pool with no motel. Everything is a piece of a story. The creation of the town itself and everything in it is loosely based off of a story. What do we know is true? The kids themselves were told a story that they might not actually remember all the details of, and they created the town using their minds and using their hope through the tree. All of this is connected. The thing on the well is supposed to have 8 pegs, but one is missing. This visually also reminded me of the merry-go-round in the town, because what's been throwing me off about the merry-go-round in the town is that it has 8 seats, not 7. But there were 7 children that were sacrificed. For a long time, what's been bothering me about the boy in white versus the children is that if you look closely, the boy in white is wearing white, but so are the children. If you take off the dirt, you take off the decay, they're wearing white. I could be reaching, but is it possible the reason the boy in white exists is because he is the 8th child, the eighth link, the one that is missing, that was supposed to be sacrificed with the other children, and somehow he wasn't, but he's still stuck in the town. He's not a boy anymore, but he's an apparition that is appearing to people to try to help them save the other children that he was supposed to be sacrificed with. Let me know what you guys think. But that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button for more theories. I'm about to go start posting all of my theories. Stay tuned for explaining the dates, because this one's going to get real juicy. It's going to connect everything. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.